The Historic Preservation Commission is one of many boards which advise our elected River Forest Board of Trustees. The Commission has been charged with many tasks, one of which is to identify, preserve, and enhance the distinctive character, history, and architectural heritage of River Forest. This program is an effort to fulfill that mandate. Mr. Ingalls was a businessman who founded a refrigerator boxcar company. The architect he commissioned, Frank Lloyd Wright, went on to become America's most prolific and famous architect. Wright designed more than 1,000 structures during a 7-decade career. In giving Wright the commission, Mr. Ingalls stipulated that every room had to have windows on 3 sides to maximize light and ventilation. The result was a balanced cuneiform or cross-like plan. The cantilevered balconies and roof overhangs visually extend the horizontal line beyond the central core. Horizontality, which is another characteristic of the Prairie School style, is emphasized with the bands of windows, low wide chimney, and a horizontal green trim. A closer look at the balconies, which perfectly balance each other. This urn of flowers is another characteristic of the Prairie School style. The urns were usually round in shape, but in this case flat and rectangular. This urn is perfectly balanced by its twin on the other side. A hallmark of the Prairie School style was informal gardens or plantings with plants that are indigenous to the prairie. Let's take a closer look at the beautiful art glass windows on the 2nd floor. Which are of Wright design. Wright believed that clean, straight lines were more fitting for modern houses than the undulating Art Nouveau designs then in vogue. Intricate patterned glass often eliminated the need for curtains. When a view was important, the center of the window was left clear. This low wide chimney contributes to the horizontal thrust of the structure. In this final look, we can appreciate what Wright achieved with this residence. The balconies, the urns, the thrust-out porch all act as a visual fulcrum. Everything is in balance. I should point out, however, that this is only one version of the Prairie style. Do not expect to see this balance in all of Wright's structures. On May 3rd, 1894, the Oak Park Reporter announced, and I quote, that Jacob Frank of Chicago will build a $7,000 residence at the corner of Franklin and Oak, after the plans of W.J. Van Curen. During the 1880s and 1890s, the Queen Anne style was very popular in the U.S. The style was named after Good Queen Anne, who ruled England from 1702 to 1714. This model borrows heavily from the late medieval buildings, which were a mass of irregular shapes and volumes. As is characteristic of the style, the residence is encircled by a wide arcaded veranda. Projecting crossed gables is another characteristic of this style. As is the shingled attic gables. and with the paired decorative brackets which can be seen on the corner. The austere white walls are sheathed in narrow clapboarding and vertical white corner boards. Note the subtle decorations, the diamond-shaped design on either side of the third floor window and a scallop design over the two narrow windows below it. The walls are punctuated with classical and Renaissance detailing, such as this arched attic window and a Palladian window on the north-facing gable, which can barely be discerned because of all the greenery. A Palladian window is made up of two smaller windows on either side of a larger one, which is usually crowned with an arch. This type of window is named after the Italian architect Palladio, who worked during the 1600s. This view shows you the larger center window in the Palladian style. The hip roof is pierced by tall, narrow chimneys. Here we see the simple front entrance, with decorated posts and balustrades on the porch. Curvilinear bay windows are an important feature of this style. A charming pergola on the back, and a delightful garage, which looks as though it had once been a barn. One last glance at a magnificent residence. This home was designed by Solon S. Beeman, Jr., 1887-1952. He was the son of a more famous architect who designed the town of Pullman and the buildings for the Columbian Exhibition of 1894. This Normandy style emanates from half-timbered farmhouses in Normandy, France. They are characterized by steeply pitched hip roofs and arched doorways set in imposing cone roof towers. The building materials can be either brick, stone, or stucco. In this case, we have stucco and brick. The French eclectic Norman architectural style is a version of the Romanesque architecture. It was developed by the Normans during the 11th and 12th centuries. The Romanesque influence can be seen in the rounded arch over the door. In this style, the tower is located at the center of the structure and serves as the entrance to the home. It is no accident that homes of this style resemble miniature castles, because back in Europe, some of them were. This style also invokes interest by varying the size of the windows, these being very narrow. The half-timbering also adds interest by not being just horizontal and vertical. This charming weather vane is a reminder of ages past. A last look at this picturesque residence. I would like to contrast this place with the next one, the Chauncey Williams House, which is similar in style. Chauncey Williams was a publisher and a community leader. Wright was just beginning his career. It has been said that the Williams House was the perfection of Wright's high-roofed houses. This is one of Wright's early homes. You'll notice that the repeated horizontal line of the eaves and the string course of the windows provide sharp contrast with the verticality of the steep roof and the massive chimney. The dormers also contribute to the horizontality of the structure. A close-up. This was the first Wright house to show an Oriental influence, with the stone boulders around the entrance and the foundation. I particularly enjoy the beautiful decorations in the Romanesque arch and the door screen, which you can just see above the hedge. Finally, near the door is this very interesting quadrifoil window. Next, we'll look at something entirely different. David Cunningham Thatcher was River Forest's first settler. He came to the area in 1854 and bought 640 acres. In 1858, he built this restrained Italianate style house. There are many subtypes of the Italianate style, but they all tend to have low-pitched roofs, wide overhanging eaves with decorative brackets underneath, tall, narrow windows with window hoods, and are normally 2 to 3 stories high. This style came to the U.S. in the 1830s and reached the height of its popularity from the 1850s to the 1880s. This particular structure is built on the L-shaped plan. The front projecting wing is balanced by a simple open porch. Paired brackets support the wide eaves. Again, the paired brackets and very simple window hoods. Particularly pleasing is the upper balcony, which together with its decorative console forms a hood over the lower paired windows. The simple but elegant entryway. A final view of this charming home. Isabel Roberts was secretary and bookkeeper for Frank Lloyd Wright. Wright referred to her as his, quote, faithful secretary, unquote. In 1908, he designed this house for her. The residence is pure prairie style. That is, low slung roof, layered parallel planes, and bands of casement windows. Wright devised a cuneiform plan, just like the Ingalls house. The major areas are 2 stories high, crossed by lower wings. The living room is ground level, sleeping quarters a half a level above, and workrooms a half a level below. The house was originally in stucco, but was brick veneered in 1927. A British elm rose through the roof of the south porch. Can you see the remains of the tree? The casual observer wouldn't even notice the peculiar addition to this home. Wright was loath to cut down even a single tree, and therefore he planned the house around an English elm, which was more than 100 years old. The diamond-shaped window designs give the living room privacy. Here is a close-up. The characteristic large horizontal chimney. Typical of Wright-designed homes is the hidden front door, which gives the structure an aspect of mystery. Wright referred to hidden doors as paths of discovery. The idea was that while visitors were searching for the entryway, they were appreciating the structure's other interesting features. At the entryway is another hallmark of the prairie style, the informal garden. This approach rejected formal European gardens in favor of flowers and trees that grow naturally in the Midwest, such as lilacs, daylilies, ferns, oaks, and maples. A view of the second floor where the bedrooms are located. And finally, the garage. A parting view of a right masterpiece. J.R. and Cora Cummings were first listed at this address in 1896. Their house was built of massive blocks of rusticated brownstone. While its bays and octagonal tower are characteristics of the Queen Anne style, its heaviness is unusual for the Midwest. Its Romanesque style windows and rough wall surfaces suggest that the unknown architect was familiar with the work of H.H. Richardson, who practiced in the East during the 1860s and 1870s, and there developed the Richardson Romanesque style. Since Richardson's buildings were of solid masonry construction, they tended to be very expensive and therefore used primarily for public buildings and mansions. This is a rare example of this style in River Forest. Note the arched window and the octagonal tower. This is certainly a formidable looking structure. Because of the large global lights and the heavy stone, the entryway gives us the feeling of entering a public building rather than a residence. However, handsome art glass windows do help lighten the massiveness of the structure, as does this circular window. The rusticated wall and the variety of window styles, circular, oval, and rectangular, together with their individual window hoods, all add great interest to the building. Here we have a side view of this unusual structure. This is a rare masterpiece which should be cherished by all River Forest residents. Since his wife was a member, Drummond donated his plans to the River Forest Women's Club. This was the first women's club in Illinois to own their own building. Drummond received his Prairie School training while a draftsman in Wright's studio, where he was employed from 1899 to 1909. In 1909, he left to form his own practice. In 1912, he formed a partnership with Louis Grinzel. This structure illustrates Drummond's concern for composition, symmetry, and relating the structure to the site. The neighborhood surrounding this building is residential with many old homes on large lots. Therefore, this structure fits in. Here we see two of the four large corner piers which help balance the structure. A la right, the cantilevered slab roof creates a powerful horizontal statement. The various sized and shaped windows play a key role in adding interest to the structure. The 5 large wood mullion clustery windows on the top and the 3 lower windows also provide lots of natural light to the interior. Let's take a look at the upper windows. Their unusual shape and design add interest as well as beauty, as do the modern second floor art glass windows. Each pier displays tall slit windows. A close-up. Here is the lattice-covered porte cochere, which protects the entrance. The beautiful landscape backyard follows the Prairie School tradition of marrying nature and architecture. A final peek at a Drummond masterpiece. Robert C. Spencer Jr., 1864 to 1953, was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He studied at the University of Wisconsin and matriculated to MIT, graduating with a degree in mechanical engineering in 1886. He was employed with the Chicago office of Shepley, Rutan, and Coolidge, who were the designers of the old main branch of the Chicago Public Library and the Art Institute of Chicago. Spencer did the mosaic designs for both structures. He was a close friend of Wright, but worked out his own version of a modern style. He was inspired by Louis Sullivan and contemporary English architects who were translating medieval architecture for modern needs. Spencer developed a conservative, formal version of Prairie style with a blend of simple masses, rectangular details, and English medieval half-timbering. Here we see the deep overhangs of the roof, the horizontal strings of windows, stonework, and the siding on the second floor. The horizontal projection of the living room and the cross roof gables are all Prairie School style characteristics, as is also the large horizontal chimney. Another view. One last peek at a Spencer and Powers architectural gem. In 1857, Herman Yalding came west with his parents from Lowell, Massachusetts. After discharge from the Union Army in 1864, he started with the American Express Company and remained with them until his death in 1922. The Yalding Cottage is an example of the picturesque Gothic style. American builders were affected by the Romanticism of the Victorian era, which lasted from 1835 till 1901. They translated stone church buildings into domestic structures. The Grant Woods American Gothic style resulted from merging timber framing with simpler forms. Noteworthy are its paired pointed windows with moldings parallel to the steeply pointed roof. The diamond shape created by the double window grouping is mirrored by another in the upper part of the gable. The porch, with its fanciful brackets and fretwork in the porch gable there, is decorated in the Eastlake style, which is part of the Queen Anne style of architecture. Characteristic of the Eastlake style are geometric ornamentation as shown in the porch spindles and the screen under the porch, which were designed to be affordable and easy to clean. The polygonal bay to the south is also typical of the style. The garage continues the style. A final view of this American masterpiece. Finally, the estate you're about to see was one of the 297 that the Historic Preservation Commission had identified as a significant property. The 7,000 square foot mansion was one of the most lavish in River Forest. It had 7 bedrooms, 3 baths, a large fireplace, a grand mahogany staircase, and plaster crown molding. The exterior had many Prairie School characteristics. The various sized and shaped windows added interest to the residence. This residence was the 4th in the North Woods area of River Forest. It was commissioned by the founder and treasurer of the Victor Gasket Company. In the late 1920s, the home was sold to Franklin Mars. Mars was the founder of the Mars Candy Company and was nationally known as the Candy King. Among his famous products were the Milky Way and the Three Musketeers. The huge garden, more than an acre of land, was landscaped with a putting green, a sunken garden, and a lily pond. I speak in the past tense because in September 2015, this magnificent structure was demolished, the property divided into 2 lots, and developed. Someone made a lot of money. There is no reason why other River Forest historical structures cannot suffer the same fate. The only thing that can prevent this from happening again is public opinion. If River Forest citizens care enough, they will act. If they act, the culture of River Forest will be preserved for the next generation. If not, it won't.